So today we're going to be going over how we can track our budget versus actuals using Monday.com. But before we get into it, I want to review the budgeting process a bit more in detail. So the agenda for this presentation, we'll begin by looking at the basics of budgeting, and then we'll take a deep dive into how we can use project management tools to better track our budget versus actuals. This is in no way limited to Monday.com. It can be replicated in Asana or any other budget program management tool. So to start everything off, I want to talk about what a budget actually is. Budgets are summaries of short-term operational activities of an organization. For example, an organization may prepare a cash budget to predict the inflows and outflows for the calendar year or the fiscal year. Budgets are generally quantitative representations, but can be qualitative in some scenarios. To expand on that, budgets are a strategic organizational plan. They are based on facts, events in progress, and actions planned, and are a collaborative effort by finance and the departments affected, and require inputs before preparation. They're typically managed by department heads who take the required steps to make sure they're able to achieve the plan that's laid out. And finally, they're necessary for the planning and for the general control of the organization. So I want to turn this over to a poll and really figure out how everyone that's here, how are you guys currently tracking your budgets? I'm able to answer as well, so I'm going to drop an answer in there. Shivani, let me know when you're able to share the results. Great. So generally, it looks like Excel is the winner, as I expected. We are all power users in Excel and in the accounting departments. And similarly, it looks like the finance team is managing the program budgets for 27% of the people that are on the call here today, which is really interesting because we believe at NCheng that it's important to really bridge the gap between finance and development and the rest of the organization. And that will take us to Monday.com and really why that is a great tool for us to be able to bridge that gap and really empower the programmatic staff. But before I do that, I want to expand a little bit more on characteristics of a budget and highlight some of these things on Monday.com. Again, as I mentioned earlier, budgets are stated in monetary units, but they can be non-monetary in some scenarios. They're usually short-term, but could be extrapolated from or to a longer period budget. Senior management must be involved in the process and must approve it. And most important, budgets must be compared to actuals and the variances must be investigated. And that's going to take us to Monday.com. And I'll go a little bit deeper. Before I do that, I'll go a little bit deeper into what Monday.com is. Monday.com is a work operating system that powers teams to run projects and workflows with confidence. Using a platform, teams are able to shape workflows, adjust to shifting needs, create transparency, and connect collaboratively. And finally, they're able to reduce manual grunt work. Those are all things that you can imagine make the budgeting process a lot more seamless, along with allow you to reduce the admin time needed in doing work that can be automated in many cases. So with that, I'm going to shift over to Monday.com. Bear with me as I stop sharing and reshare the screen that we're going to look at right now. Apologies. Here we are. So, screen 3, share. So what you should all be seeing is my Monday.com screen. I'm going to make this full screen so it's easier to adjust and to read. Here we are, more actions and full screen. This is Monday.com. So what you guys will all find today is I've created what we've probably seen in Excel in this Monday.com board, as it's called. On the first column, I have my salaries and wages, rather my groups, which break down between our different accounting groups. Each row represents a budgeted line. In the case of this, program staff 1, program staff 2. If I go further down, I have my fringe, my OTPS, and things that are relevant to this specific contract. Each column represents a field that I want to track, and it's completely adjustable to the things that I require. I've added a department head column here to see who should be in charge of tracking these specific budgets. I've added a files column, and this files column may be a place where I upload receipts or budget files or payroll timesheets even. I've added a column for the budgeted. This may be something that I've already submitted to the funding source. An actual column, which should tie back directly to my accounting records. The remaining budget, which is just the net of the two columns here. And then the approver. The approver is the control check to make sure everything is being tied out and mapped by senior management. And for the approver, I've added a deadline so I can make sure that I'm following the timeline that I want to follow for my month-end close. And an as of column. And that really represents the last time I updated that specific row. For example, if I were to show you this, if I were to update this to 26,000, you'll find that the as of column changes to just now. So you guys are probably all thinking, we've seen this looks like Excel, why is this any different? Well, it's different because I'm able to interact live with each person on each column here and engage them in the conversation. And what I mean by that is I can actually go take a nosedive into program staff 1, for which I've set myself as the department head, and I can engage a conversation with the relevant parties. So if I wanted to, let's say, for example, at someone that should look into this, I can at that person and say, hey, have we hired this position? And now this highlights something for me. Things that would typically have been happening for me in email or Teams or Slack account are now happening in a centralized place. I have visibility as to what's going on, and I'm able to engage my team to make sure I'm able to really have a centralized place to track the finances for this specific contract. An extension of that, I'm able to not only converse, but look at the activity log. That activity log gives me an audit log of all the changes that were made to this specific row. In the case of this, I am the only one that's made any changes. You'll see my name populated here quite often. But if I had other individuals, I'm able to filter that down to see who made those specific changes. Going further, there are viewpoints that we can typically look at budgets, but we don't typically do. On Monday.com, I'm able to take the main table and convert it into a chart view. If I were to do that, it takes the data and it transposes it, and it gives me the budget versus actuals by the program head. Now I'm looking at, let's look at me, for example, the budgeted amount for me, which was $72,500, the actuals that I've spent thus far, $34,710, and my remaining balance. And of course, if I wanted to, I can always download this to PDF and use this for internal reporting. In the case of this, let's see here we are. That board downloads very cleanly to something that I can share internally if I wanted to. Going further down the list, I'm able to make adjustments to this board however I want to. For example, I can change my x-axis to something else. For example, I want to look at this by group rather than by department head, and the board readjusts to the look that I want to engage in. I can change that to a pie, really showing me the breakdown of the budget across each department head. I can even look at a timeline and look at the status for each board. In the case of this, I can look to see when things have been approved and what's currently in the reviewed status. I set a prior date here. So let me see if I can jump to it. Here we are. Here are all items that were reviewed by the 15th and all items that had an issue. So if I want to engage with that issue, I can simply click on any item and drive down to that level. I can see that this was an OTPS occupancy line item. Aaron Lamb is the person that's the department head that's managing it. And if I want to talk a little bit deeper about it, I can start the conversation. And here's an update that's already been posted. And I can simply say, what is the status? And here I am making my entire team, I'm giving them a notification on this item. And similarly, if you look here, I'm able to see who from my team has already seen this update, whether it's via email or via web. To kind of go a little bit deeper, I've set into motion 3 boards such as this. Here's another contract budget tracking board. It looks very similar to the one that I showed earlier. And finally, I put together an events budget tracking board. And what you'll find different about this board is that it's set up to capture expenses for a specific event. I have highlighted organizers for each specific line item, and I've, rather than having it on a reporting date, I've had it set as arranged by. And I'm able to really ping my team to let them know that they must arrange this by a specific date, and the amounts that are budgeted, what the actual cost is coming in as, and finally my remaining budget. The nice thing about using dates is I'm able to change that view and look at a calendar viewpoint and really get an idea and manage my time a little bit better throughout the month. And finally, I'm able to take all of that data and bring it all together in a dashboard. And what you guys will find here is, using that dashboard, I'm able to take the 3 boards that I just showed you and convert them into a more digestible dashboard of the organization's finances. Here, this budget column is my budget across the 3 boards that I showed you. And to prove that, I'm going to edit this and show you the boards that are being pulled in. It's my contract budget tracking 1, contract budget tracking 2, and then finally my event budget tracking. Doing so, I'm able to dig a little bit deeper, and here is my budget by groupings. Here's my actual by groupings and my remaining balance. Earlier, I posted a few updates during this presentation, and you will find that those updates are finding their way on this dashboard here. And this viewpoint is across all 3 boards that I showed you here today. And finally, here is the calendar of my events that are occurring. And I can really look into each row if I needed to. For example, rent space, I can simply click on this, look at who the organizer is, look at the deadline, and look at the remaining budget. In the case of this, I can simply ping my team and see what's going on with the line item and why there may be changes, and ping my team directly. In the case of this, you'll notice that as I hover over the to seen marker, it shows me that my colleague Gertie Brokaj saw this as well, and I can look at the activity log to see when this was interacted with. Finally, going back to the dashboard for one more thing, the other thing I'm able to do is I'm able to filter this budget down by individual. So if I wanted to see this by person, I can simply filter this entire dashboard by, in this case, myself. And as I do that, it's going to show me the budgeted amount for me as a department head, the actuals for me as a department head, and finally the remaining balance, helping me to plan better and also helping me to engage my engage my organization in different conversations that would typically be difficult to have in an Excel format. With that, this is the review of Monday.com. I realize this is quite fast. I will be working with Shivani to release a how-to guide on our social media platforms, and I'd be happy to explore these options with you. I'm going to